yesterday afternoon. All right, yesterday afternoon's recording got sent to the cloud. We did find it, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with. So again, like we're gonna just post in my, my ups and downs. All of it is gonna be there. So I have. Let me see. Bring this over. So we did put out both yesterday's morning and afternoon sessions. And then Gary came up with the solution to fix the process dashboard problem, the formatting issue. And it's really, in the end, it's about 8 characters that we need to add to the whole program, and everything functions properly from that point forward. So that I covered in this second little video here, the day 2 follow-up for the process monitoring project. It's a real quick, just kind of showing that it worked. I wanted you to know that we were able to get it to work. And I say I mean, Gary told me how to do it and I tried it. So that's where we're at with that one. And then the other thing that really was, for me, was disconcerting is that performance dashboard project has always worked, like spot on, always worked. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So what I did is I went last night after I did the process management one, I went and I installed a legacy OS on another Raspberry Pi. So I have 2 Raspberry Pis functioning now. One with the current OS, which is what we've been working with. That's what I have the ad guard on, and then one using the legacy OS, which is the previous version. It's the Buster version of Debian. And I did the performance dashboard and it worked perfect the first time, like no problem. So I think in both cases, I really think if we did the process monitoring on a legacy OS, I don't think we would have had the problem that we had, right? Because I think the formatting thing, I think there's the newer libraries that are included in the new OS are what's causing the issues. Okay, so one of the first things we'll do today after we go over another pile of resources is I want to not re-image your ad guard. If you have a second SD card, then hopefully you have a second SD card and we'll image a legacy OS, because I believe that projects will work a whole lot better on the legacy OS. Because all of the projects up to date, right, unless they were created after April on the new OS, all of those projects would work on the previous version of the operating system. And the legacy OS is simply that, just the previous version. Even in my classroom for the fall, because I still use the Pi camera, and I haven't figured out, I haven't taken the time to figure out how to use the new Python camera libraries, because all of my examples are based on Pi camera, the Pi camera library. I'm going to stick with the legacy OS. I feel like until the labs get updated, right? The code gets updated to match to the new libraries and the new OS, that it's going to be a significantly safer way to go. The students aren't going to notice any difference, right? They're just not going to notice any difference between the two, except things work and things don't work. So, and I think we learned that yesterday, which I think, again, another place, this is a good place for that to happen, because now we have, the instructors are aware that, hey, we should probably stick with the legacy OS for a little while, and go from there. Okay. So on the YouTube channel, I have all of those videos. I have the video walking through the performance dashboard so that you can see that it was working. The process monitoring, I did the changes to the code, so you can see that. You can modify your code if you would like. That process monitoring projects, like, we're at the end of part 1, right? I think there's 3 other parts. There's a part where you automate things, and there's a part where you do some additional monitoring, some other stuff that we haven't gotten to, that we didn't do in that project. We may, if we have extra time, say at the end of the day or something, maybe we can kind of head back to that and and continue on that so that we can kind of see how that whole thing works out. And if we don't, I just wanted you to be aware that we have stopped short on that one, mainly because we spent a good 45 minutes troubleshooting the code. So, all right. So that's the YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and drop that up.
Which one the code work on? Is it like a specific version of the Pi, or there's an this one looks okay to me.
So if you watch the 8-minute video, we add a piece .decode after the line that was giving us problems because the format was wrong.
Okay.
And there's a little .decode that you would add to the end of the line, and that's in that little 8-minute video. So you do the code that we were working on yesterday. You just open that code back up, change that piece, and you should be able to get that dashboard working with initial state, the process dashboard. Right, and I didn't do anything new on that one. The other one, that second project that I was like, okay, instead of finishing that, let's go and do this other project that I know works, and then it didn't work. That one I did on a brand new legacy OS. And the projects I'm talking about are the initial stage, right? So so we were working on right here, this monitor your IP process. This one is the one we were doing, and this is the one we did, and we ran into the formatting issue. So I'll copy that one into, all right, so that's in the chat there. And what we ended up doing is let me get to the next page. When we're editing, right, and it's on the video too, but when you're editing this monitor process Pi, right here where it says output.rstrip, parenthesis, so right there, literally you do .decode. I can't do it in there, but it says .decode, parenthesis, and that's in that video. And then this project, the rest of the project should work as is, like it'll work on the new OS, on the machine that we were working on yesterday. Okay, so that's what we did, or that's what we were up against on that project. And then the other project, so this monitoring, or this create a health system dashboard for your Pi. This project, right, it failed with another formatting kind of an issue. However, I went back through it last night, and that's the second video, the 18-minute video, with about 20 minutes worth of cutting out because my dashboard wouldn't pop up, but I discovered how I figured out why. So I eliminated all of the troubleshooting because it was just me kind of staring at the screen for a while. But this project, if you do this project and you've never done this project before, the bucket will show up, right? And you'll get it on the shelf right away. Because I've done this project before, my bucket number had been deleted from my shelf. And even though I was collecting data, it wasn't presenting the bucket because I had deleted the bucket. So I had to change the bucket ID or whatever that bucket number was. And as soon as I did that, my bucket showed up. So this performance monitor project on a legacy OS works exactly as expected. Right? So if you follow the instructions as they say, and you've never done this dashboard before, then it should populate properly, but you have to be on a legacy OS. And we'll do the legacy OS. That'll be the first thing we do after we talk about all these resources. Both of those, so I did a couple things. So both of those, this day 2 follow-up process, right? I put them on our drive and I put them in YouTube. So these 2 videos are kind of here's how you fix the process monitoring project, and here's how you do the dashboard to get it to function properly, right? So those 2 are there. The other thing I did is I went out and downloaded so that you have access to these and you can download and save these, but I downloaded the Buster, this Buster Lite and the Buster Regular. These are the legacy OSs. Right? So these legacy OSs are the ones that I recommend that you use until your projects are run and tested on the new operating system, and you have fully functional instructions, right? So my take on this, and this is my opinion, I believe like everything that we see online currently, probably 95% of all of that is going to be based on Buster and should function on Buster. Whereas there's only a small percentage of the projects out there that are designed and built and updated for the new Bullseye operating system. There's some pretty significant changes. They deprecated some things, and we saw like the PSUtil was different. So the commands are different. The formatting of the data is different. Like, so a lot of those things have to be updated in order to function on the new operating system. So my opinion is I think it's safer to run the legacy OS, which is what we're going to do today, so that we can hopefully stave off any other kind of weirdness. All right. So that's the plan there. AdGuard is still functioning. This is my AdGuard. Right, so I left it running, and so you can kind of see what's going on. So that works really well. And then, yeah. Oh, and I am recording, so I can move my record sticker out of the way now. Awesome. So then resources. I'm a big resource fan. Let me open up the web links page here. I'm going to drop that on the other screen, because right there's some resources I want you to be aware of. And these are all, these first three resources today are these are magazines that are part of the Raspberry Pi Foundation. Like, they have a publishing arm, right? And they consolidated a lot of really cool magazines out there. So if you're not familiar with the Magpie magazine, right, they have 118 issues now. These are all downloadable for free, download free PDFs, right? So you can download the free PDF. And once it's down, I'll show you what it looks like. I did turn on my camera because I want you to all kinds of cool stuff. So where's the camera? Here's the camera. All right, so if you can get them in physical form, I don't know about you, but I love books and magazines like that. But I keep these as pristine as I can. But these are so this is actually those are like coding, right? Especially at the high school level, like build a house in Minecraft using Python, right? And this is a rather old one. This is from 2018, but these books, they're 100 pages long, and they are packed with reviews and tutorials and all kinds of crazy things, people's projects, here's how to build a robot, right? Ooh, the Didi board, I love that one. We have some GoPi Go's as well. These CamJam kits are pretty cool too. But these are, like, I got a set of these. And then every year they have like this is like a special edition with really cool projects in it. And there's all of these, like, here's, Home Assistant, right? So how to do Home Assistant. So somebody walking you through how to do Home Assistant. Pretty cool stuff. So Magpie magazine, like, this is a Raspberry Pi based magazine that I really enjoy. I really, really enjoy it. And you can get PDF copies of every single one of them, right? So this is the latest one. This is one we're talking about the new photography stuff. So I would imagine this one, being brand new, June 22, is going to have how to use the new camera library, right? Which would be totally awesome if that's what they have in it. Because we just talked about, I don't know how to use that yet. So Raspberry Pi photography, let's just take a look real fast. Connecting and using the camera. So these are the new cameras where they have all these crazy lenses. This is like version 3. It says kind of module 2, but there's a new version, high quality camera. I think we talked about that the other day. And you can see this one's connected to a Raspberry Pi Zero. I am trying to see, I'm curious, right? So if they, like, so Yeah, and there's so it is using so Raspi still is still a deal, so that's good. I don't see, yeah, they're not talking about it. I'm disappointed now. Well, they're all just, it's all command line still. There's Python. Did I skip into a different project? No, we're still got cameras. Oh, that's sensors, PI sensors. So they went, oh, that's time lapse. So I'm curious. This is me just trying to discover some camera. See, they're using Pi camera still. So this one's still using the older tool. I don't know why they pulled it out. I don't know why they pulled Pi camera out. Everybody uses it. Anyways, but you can see like if you wanted to learn that, like this is a great way to learn this stuff, right? And this magazine, you can see I just downloaded it for free, right? So all Raspberry Pi, all the time, like this, what this Pi magazine is all about. One of the ideas that I had is I would love to like just take a magazine and then go through everything, like, and record, videos of doing all of the projects and building out the projects and things like that. It'd be kind of fun to have that as a resource for people to take a look at and play with. Right? Oh my gosh, that's awesome. We're going to stop because we'll get sidetracked too easily. But Magpie Magazine, let's go ahead and actually, I'm going to go back to the main page for Magpie Magazine. I'm going to put that in no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this again. I just downloaded it again. That's awesome. Me and my clicks today, copy. I'm going to put this in our list of things. Right? I think these are really good. Can't emphasize enough how cool they are. Hackspace Magazine. So this is another magazine that Raspberry Pi does. And it's about all kinds of stuff. So here's some of the things like automated chessboard. Here's a walnut laptop, right? Using these, I can't remember what they're called, right? These Nixie tubes, right? All of these really fun projects. This magazine had me hooked from the very first issue, because the very first issue, there was designs on how to build a 3-foot trebuchet. Literally. There's plans in the magazine to build a trebuchet. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's do that. So they have, again, they're 55 issues out at this point, like tons of good stuff. Like, so, anything that has to do with Lego, I'm all over. Here's some machine learning stuff. Here's some stuff with Pico, 40 Pico projects a couple of months ago, right? Lots of good resources. All of these are free to download. You don't have to have a subscription. If you like print, highly recommend that you get a subscription. These are really high quality magazines, nice to have around so students can kind of look at them and play with things. And then I know we have somebody here that's highly interested in gaming. Let me get this, let me put this on our list of things. All right. And so they also have another one called Wireframe, right? So, which is, I've got a copy of that too. It's really, I have the first edition. I think this is the first one. Where did I? And so super nice. So what this does, they have reviews of games, but then they also have, there's a Commodore 64 deal right there. Interactive Portal reimagined for the Commodore 64. I'm trying to find back here in the back, they usually have, right? So this is talking about probability. This is toolbox, mathematics of balance, right? So there's actually a whole, like an article on how to deal with the math related to games and things like that. And then there's other things like code, explosions in Python, right? The geniuses behind the Defenders explosions, right? So totally fun stuff. Oh my gosh. Right, so every magazine has articles on games, right? Which every video game magazine has to have that. But then they've gone a step further, and they have things on how to design games, how to design characters, how to design movement, how to build things in Python, right? So if you're doing gaming curriculum, right? I think having a set of these around, especially if you can get the, again, if you can get the paper copies, awesome. But if not, you can they're the same way. You can download a copy for free, right? So totally good stuff. I mean, I'm impressed with the material, right? I use this kind of material all the time. Anytime I'm doing like a workshop of any sort, anytime I'm doing, like I have students that come to the hackerspace, and they, what are you interested in kind of playing around with? And then, as soon as they kind of give me a direction, our first kind of resource is to come and see if there's a project that was in one of these magazines that we can just immediately get started. Go get the parts off the shelf and drop it into drop it onto the table and get started. So so those 3 magazines, right, that's going to be my for this morning, right? There's a couple other things we're going to talk about, but those are the 3 biggies, right? Those are the 3 big. I really think that these are worth your time to take a look at. If you can get a hold of paper copies, it's cheaper to buy them as a subscription, because they do, they're like $15 if you buy them at Barnes and Noble, each one. So, and over time, I've been able to kind of pick up, issues here and there and in different ways. And then anytime we take the team to England, I buy up whatever they have on the shelf, because it's £6 instead of $15. So, which that's almost equivalent nowadays, but it used to not be. The other thing, and I've only kind of talked about like the 3 magazines, but if you go to Magpie Magazine, right? If you go to the website, right here, they got issues. That's going to be all the magazine issues, right? And then books, right? Books. So retro gaming with the Pi, right? So this is, I don't know what the details are on this, but it's going to be 164 pages, right? Retro gaming with the Raspberry Pi 2nd edition, right? There's video gaming projects. There's, so, and obviously retro, right? So they're probably going to have to teach you how to build platform games, things like that, using Python and Pygame. So lots of really cool, like Lunchbox Arcade, right? How cool is that? Oh my gosh, that would be fun to build, right? 3D printed. Oh, this is cool. We need to stop. I need to stop. I'm sorry. But these are all, they come in this, let me show you the format they come in. So they come in this kind of format. So that's, and I say that kind of format. Here's a magazine, right? And here's, right, so it's like I don't know, it seems like maybe 6x8, something like that. And this one's rather thick, right? So there's a magazine, and there's the book. That's the beginner's guide. And then, so I use a lot of these kind of things. Like here's a simple electronics. This is a Magpie book. Here's hacking and making in Minecraft with the Raspberry Pi. You want to teach, so learn to code C with the Raspberry Pi, like an entire book. It's 100 pages long. How to program on the Pi with C, right? And these don't have, right? These don't have the graphics that are designed for younger folks, right? These don't have that. Like this is literally a book that you could give a student, and 100 pages later, they would be significantly better with coding in C. This one's also cool because this is all Python. If they like Minecraft, a lot of students like Minecraft. Actually, that's not Python. It looks like red.
Can you get older print version of this? Like, can you order it online? Like
I think you can, depending on if they have them. Like this one is sold out. This one you can buy now, right? So then I use this creating a graphical user interface with Python. I use this in my class. I have them do like 4 chapters out of this to kind of just, and then a lot of the students will integrate a graphical button in their final project. Here's the original retro gaming. That looks like Galaga to me, right? Galaga with a little bit of Space Invaders. I'm trying to find, here's the C and GUI programming. That one's sold out currently. I don't know if they're going to bring those back or not. So some of these older ones look like they're sold out. Have you guys seen this Essentials AIY projects? They have, so Google AIY, if you look that up, they have a kit that you can build your own Google, Hey Google box, like, like an Alexa box. Here's the camera module one. Here's the C one. It looks like it's sold out. Electronics sold out. I don't know if they have, maybe they're going to come with new ones. I don't know. But you can get these free downloaded. right? All of these are free downloadable. Synsat, music, a Sonic Pi. I love this one too. I think I have a physical copy of this book, but this is like 164 pages, and they walk you through how to build a game from start to finish in Python, including designing the spacecraft and the math for the bullets and the lasers or whatever, right? They walk you through all of that, like from start to finish. It's an older book, but it was really good. Like it's a, and that's, again, it's built on Python. Conquer the Command Line. I use that book still to this day. I think there's a new version of it, but I have my students, that's how we have them learn a little bit of Linux in my IoT classes, this book. So if you can, I don't know if they're going to bring them back, if they're going to just come out with new ones. Because they tend to have, there's always a beginner's book and a project book every year. And then they always, these beginner's guides. These beginner guides are really good. That's what this first one is. Like this is that's the 3rd edition, which I think is the most current one. There's a 3rd edition there. There may be a 4th. There is a 4th edition. So as they come out with new Raspberries, they put out a new book. And then this book, like you literally, if you wanted to, like if somebody just want to teach somebody how to use the Raspberry Pi, I mean, it literally walks them from start to finish, right? Getting started, using it, programming with Scratch, programming with Python, physical computing with the Synsat, Raspberry Pi camera modules. There's all kinds of appendices in it. This one does have the more youth-related graphics, but they're all still really good. But all these other ones, don't have the youth-related graphics. Even the Minecraft one, which would tend to be more youth-related. The electronics, these are all, you're not seeing them because I didn't do the camera, right? But like they're not, so they got really good. I mean, this is build an internet radio. So these are projects that go beyond what we would normally do in the class because they require, extra parts, and pieces that, and I think there's probably a parts list on this that you can do and then do this book. This book is really good. Music box. I've had students integrate projects out of this into their final project: motion sensing alarms, laser tripwires, internet radios, LED thermometer, right? So tons of really cool projects that you can build. I don't know, I love them. I think they're really great. I think they help out a tremendous amount. And they're free to,
very nice stuff.
Yeah, they're free to download too, which is the coolest part. Like I like to have physical books, and like you can see, like if I come across them, like I've done some stuff for Raspberry Pi, I've done some workshops with them, and they had, they gave us a little pile as part of a thanking gift. And I've gone to the New York Maker Fair with them, and then we visited Raspberry Pi when I take the students to Cambridge. So it's things that that's not normal, right? So I have a big pile, right, because I've been collecting them as I go. And then if I see one available, I'll buy it. I try to avoid Barnes and Noble because it's kind of like Costco for me. Come out, $400 later. What am I going to do with all this stuff? so I don't go there, but they're good, and they're all free downloads, right? So and they're material that you can put in the students' hands without any cost, right? I love having the physical books, but it's not a requirement. And this is the Magpie, right? This is on Magpie. If you go to Hackspace and you go to books, they have a whole different set of books. The book of making, wearable projects, getting started on the Arduino, right? So they don't have as many. They're a little bit newer, and their focus is all over the place. Like, any kind of cool making project is going to show up in Hackspace. We are going to use this book tomorrow, getting started with the micro Python on Raspberry Pi Pico. That's going to be the baseline for everything we do tomorrow, right? Is this book. So we're going to start from the very beginning and kind of work through the book and see what we think. So you'll get some hands-on that tomorrow. Wireframe also has books, right? So for the people that are gamers, build your own first-person shooter in Unity. And then there's a Code the Classics, right? 224. This is a hardback book, but games from the 70s and 80s, they walk you through how to build those games in Python. So totally fun stuff, right? Coding Cavern.
The Pico Raspberry Pi, is it different from the one we have, the 4?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are. One's a microcontroller, right? So more like an Arduino, the Pico is. I don't know if it's called Pico or Pico. I would think they'd probably call it Pico, but I just say Pico. But I'll talk to a British friend and see what they say. But yeah, it's a different animal altogether. It is a microcontroller. You program it from another computer, you send the code to it, and then it does that code repeatedly until you tell it to stop or you send it new code. The Raspberry Pi 4, it's a single board computer, right? It is a fully functional computer. Because it has the GPIO pins, it has some of the capabilities of, say, the Pico or the Arduino. It only has digital capabilities. You can add analog by adding other components, other hats or IC chips, right? Or integrated circuits into a breadboard. But these things that we're looking at here, well, some of them are Arduino projects, some of them are Raspberry Pi projects. This code, the classics, is going to be coding. I think you can do it on anything that has Python, right? But I think it's meant to be like to use the Raspberry Pi to do it. It's not required, I don't think, but that's the idea there. This is kind of fun too. Help, my computer is broken. The Intolerant Person's Guide to Keeping Your Computer Computing. So they have fun with this, right? And I love that about the folks that are running all of these things. There's some really, really smart individuals that contribute to these books. It's really fun. I don't know. I wanted to share it with you because I think those 3 websites, again, I think as we go through all these websites and we look at all the different things that were out there, like this right here, today's 3 websites, that could take you a month just to go through them to decide what it is you want to do. And then you could have 6 months worth of projects lined up of like, oh my gosh, that's cool. Like, like if you are a programmer or a game programmer, like there's 140 pages to do a first-person shooter game in Unity. I mean, that'll, depending on, some folks, that'd be a week, right? Students, that'd probably be an entire semester. But, the students coming out of the semester having built a first-person shooter game in Unity, I don't know, that's a pretty good skill in today's world. So yeah, so I don't know. I hope you guys see, I get super excited. I apologize if that's annoying or overbearing, but I mean, there's so many cool things. All right. And it's one of those, I have a list a mile long, right, of things that I want to do. And I have a lot of things. I got a lot of parts and pieces that I've purchased in order to do projects. And I tend to always gravitate back to, I want to make sure that what I do for my students is set straight, right? And that's a real limited set of things. And then I try to do extra things on top of that, beyond that. So, and
this is really exciting and good stuff. I really love this type of things.
Good. I'm good. I'm glad somebody does.
You are good.
I'm sorry. I'm going to close these now. But those 3, I put them in our website links. I'm giving you guys like a year and a half's worth of homework. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sorry. And then I thought about this yesterday afternoon, and I thought, you guys you have to know about these, or I need to show you this, but there's a group of guys, and I say guys, I don't know if there's male and female or anything like that. I know most of them are male, which unfortunately is typical for our industry, but there's a group, they're out of Cambridge, right? They're part of the kind of that inner core of the people that are related to Raspberry Pi. And there's a makerspace there that puts on Pi Wars, which is some of those folks are involved with this. But this Mythic Beast, right? Mythic-Beast, right? It's actually a hosting company, right? And they put their servers, right? Their servers are Raspberry Pis or Apple Minis, right? That's their data center. And you can rent Raspberry Pis, like an online Raspberry Pi. You can provision a Raspberry Pi in like a couple minutes and have access to it remotely, online. It costs like, let's go look, right? So Raspberry Pi, £6 for a month, right? So for a Pi, so it's kind of expensive considering. However, like you don't have to do anything. It's up and running and you can play with it. And then they do have on-demand billing. So you turn it on and you pay on a per minute basis kind of thing. In a month it's £6.61. But you can get bigger machine, like you get a Raspberry Pi 4. You can run servers on this. They have servers that you can run WordPress on. They've got web hosting. They've got email hosting. They actually have a data center in Cali. Where is it at? They have a data center in California somewhere. I forgot where they put it. And it's on here somewhere, but I don't know. I think it's fun. Like, I don't know that I would pay for that, but I think there's probably, a place where it makes some sense. I'm like, well, I could probably move my web server to there because my web server is not a big server. I pay somebody already to do that all the time. And I could probably save some money and just have it run on a Raspberry Pi somewhere. I thought that'd be kind of fun. And then I got thinking to myself, right? So this is how my brain works. I'm like, I wonder, like, because I don't know, I probably have 50 or 60 Raspberry Pi 2s and 3s kind of hanging around in the lab. And then we have a brand new set of Raspberry Pi 4s. And I'm like, well, I don't want to waste all those things. I'm like, well, thinking of how they've done this, right? And I don't want to do a public thing, but I'm thinking, holy cow, I have a data center in our school, in our building, actually, one classroom down from where my lab is at, which hosts, we have our Nutanix system in there, and then all of our Cisco labs are in there, right? So we have this big data center for Cisco labs and things. I'm like, we could just rack mount all the Raspberry Pis. So I went to Thingiverse and I said, Raspberry Pi server racks, right? And look at these racks. Like I could rack mount, 12 Raspberry Pis, and stack those up. And then we could actually make them available to students to remotely connect to a Raspberry Pi across a VPN, right? So they can come at home, VPN, use VNC, connect to their Raspberry Pi, right? And do anything but physical computing on that Raspberry Pi. And I'm like, how cool would that be? I don't know, maybe it's cool, maybe it's not, but I'm like, so then that's where my brain went this morning. I'm like, oh, there's lots of good options here. So so next Monday, I'll probably be starting this print right here. So because we do have a 3D printer in-house. So I'm gonna try that and see if I can kind of make something like that happen. I think that would be really like a fun way for students to try these things out. Anyways, so there. Yeah, so I don't know, that's just me getting sidetracked. Okay, are there any questions?
Can you visualize Raspberry Pi?
I don't know, and I was gonna ask, because we have a Nutanix system and we virtualize desktops all the time, servers all the time. We have Ubuntu servers. I wonder. I'm not gonna. I have to connect to the VPN, so I don't think I should do that now. But I think all I have to do is have them drop the ISO onto the data store, and I could probably launch and virtualize on the vSphere, right? I'm gonna write it down because if I don't, I'll forget. But I really think it's possible because you can run the desktop version, right? The desktop version. There's a Pi desktop. I'll go show you what I'm talking about. Pi desktop on the vSphere.
And I think the beauty is having a physical machine because,
oh, yeah,
with all the stuff that you can connect to it and,
without a doubt. However, like my thinking is like on this, like we have some chunky, I don't even know what the system is because I'm not involved with the class, but we have an advanced Linux class. And I have students come to me all the time because access to their system is messed up. And then when they call the instructor, it takes like 4 days for them to reply. And his reply is typically, well, just restart. Like, Like, I'm like, well, couldn't we just rack up a bunch of raspberries and like they could actually have a Linux, they could put Ubuntu on there or whatever, and they can do their Linux administration like on a physical little Raspberry Pi, right? Or like we're going to do web pages today. Why couldn't a web development class use this the rack of Raspberry Pis and build have their own dedicated hardware and build Raspberry, just a way to utilize them, not like, go out and buy them to make that happen, but I have them. Like, how could we use them so that, they're, again, it's an experience, right? They're going to be, they're connecting to this, they're going to connect remotely to this device, and they manage the operating system and all those other things, from scratch. I'm like, I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool. It's just me thinking out loud, how to utilize these things and how to give the students like opportunities to learn things. Like, we have a student group called C&M Hackerspace, right? And that's a really good opportunity there. Is that, when you got students coming in and want to do projects, well, hey, we can fire up one of these Raspberry Pis, and you can put a web page there, and you can do these things, and right, and they can create, they can be creative and build things and make things and try things. And then we also have ones where you have it physically, in the room, and you can strap some motors on it and make a robot. So I don't know. I'm all about providing the opportunity, and having the resources around that I could then put in front of the students to take off with whatever idea they have in their mind, is what I'm interested in doing. So my email keeps going off in my head. So all right. Okay, I'm going to drop those things, put these away. Any other questions? So ADDL ALL. I'm just looking at so I've never seen this site. So this is add all, right? Addall.com. You just say Raspberry Pi here. Oh yeah. So this book is really cool, Adventures in Raspberry Pi. It's designed for younger folks. Carrie Ann is one of the original employees of Raspberry Pi. That's a really good project, though. A really good book. Oh yeah, so all kinds of Raspberry Pi books. So like if you're looking for books, here's the MicroPython book. This book, Matt Richardson, he's a cool guy. He works for Raspberry Pi now. So he did this with Make, and then he's now anything in the US, right, is underneath kind of his purview as far as Raspberry Pi is concerned. Or it was. I haven't talked to him lately. Jumpstarting the Raspberry Pi Zero. Yeah, so there's lots of cool books. I've never heard of Addall. That's awesome. Thanks. Another bookstore. Terrible. Awesome. Let's add, we should add that to our list. Where am I going? Let me do that one more time, just so I can put it on our list. Yeah, so Raspberry Pi Press is where all of those sites are. I took you out to the individual sites because they have all of their extra books and things like that. Sometimes they do bundles and things like that as well. So there's another magazine I really like, but they stopped publishing it. I have like the digital copies of all of their books. It's called Raspberry Pi Geek. Those were more what I would consider advanced projects, right? They usually had quite a bit of skill needed for those projects. Yeah, so if you did just spend the money, you're welcome to blame me. Like I said from the very beginning, right? I'm a drug pusher. And I guess my focus, right? I like to share all these things. I have a lot of fun playing with them. Obviously I learn from them, but I really think like when it comes to being an instructor, like getting a Raspberry Pi in front of an interested student, right? Because I think we all have those students that are taking classes because their parents told them they had to take classes, or they chose this because they think they can make a lot of money, but they really don't like computers. Right. But in that group of students that you get every semester, there's always, right. So I teach 4 to 6 classes every semester, except for the summer. You know, that's we have our class limits are 24 to 30, right? So that could be anywhere from 100 to, close to 180 students. And out of that group, there's always, right, 30 or 40 of those folks that are there because they really like computers, and they're really, really interested. And as soon as I can get one of these in front of them and show them something cool that they can make with it, like it's like candy, like it's like a drug. Right? They just want to keep on going, and they learn stuff. And then you find out later that the best story that I have to tell you, right? I had a student, she was a programming student. I'm not a programming instructor, right? She was she was in the programming degree plan, but she took the IoT class, right? She took the IoT class because it seemed interesting to her, and it's allowed as a program elective, right? And she just fell in love with it, right? This is a mom returning to the workforce after raising her kids for the last 10 years. Came to CNM, got a programming degree, took my IoT class as part of her degree, sent us a thank you letter, an email to her 4 primary instructors, me being one of those, and then our associate dean and our dean, thanking us for helping her, right? And what I thought was the totally coolest thing is that she got a job working at a local company building IoT devices, programming IoT devices. Like she got a job because of the class that she took with me. And she's like, I would have never even thought about that if I had not taken that class, right? And it's just and those are the kind of things those make all of this effort that I do worth it. Like those single emails that I get, every couple of months, I get a random email from a student for that same purpose. And I just collect those, and those are what I cherish. That's why I do what I do. And I have a lot of fun with this because this is what I've loved this since I bought my first Commodore. So I apologize for my, I don't know, I'm not going to apologize for being who I am. That's who I am. I hope you enjoy it. I hope that I don't overwhelm you, right? Just because we have this spreadsheet, this Word document that has literally 4 double-spaced lines of websites, listings of things that you could go explore. You're not required to go to any of those. It's a matter of what level of engagement you want to have. I want you to have the resources to do whatever level of engagement you feel necessary, you feel compelled to do. I hope that playing around with these things, just maybe adds a spark to what it is you do on a daily basis. So, all right.
Actually, I sent an email to my dean last night about developing a class just to do Raspberry Pi stuff.
Nice.
And this is I told her this can be like a capstone class where students are coming from different backgrounds. They can take this as an elective, whether you are a cybersecurity, you are a programmer, you are a web developer. We have all these majors, cloud computing, so on and so forth. And she said, this is a great idea. Give me a course description and I will add it to the fall list. So I'll probably be coming back to you on
I love it.
Additional resources.
That's exactly it. I agree with you 100%. Like every single program, you could build a project on the Raspberry Pi around that program, right? So they can easily show, as a capstone, that's the idea of a capstone. They can show all the things they've learned, right? By building, a device or a couple of devices or a project or whatever it is, that can all be done on this device, that's kind of the whole point that I'm trying to make with everybody, is that with the Raspberry Pi, it doesn't have to replace everything you do, but it could be added as a single project in a class, as a group of projects in a class, as a capstone for a degree, as a final project in a class. It can be added all kinds of places to add that tactile, experience, but also I built this, like, there's a lot of value in it to a student and to a person who can, when they go through and they build, say, like we just built, an ad card yesterday. That's the kind of a tiny deal. But if you think about a networking student, and if you were to give them, 4 or 5 Raspberry Pis, and they have to build a wireless access point and a router and a firewall and a file server and a DNS, DHCP, they have to build all those things, right? When they get done, they're like, holy cow, I built it. Like, it wasn't me buying something off the shelf and configuring it. I started from scratch. I put the operating system on, I put the software on, I did all the configurations, I did all the connections. Like, there's a sense of accomplishment from that, right? So a lot of this for me is to get them to that point. I really want them to have that aha moment of, I've made this, right? I made this. To me, that's important.
Yeah, and actually she said she just want to find a way to get the the Raspberry Pi to the bookstore. So because students need to have one, and I told her maybe we can get a grant for just putting a lab together in addition to what the student have. So, and I've been teaching, the security classes and the Cisco, CCNA, CCNP classes, but we always have a problem with a company that can give you a good lab infrastructure, and we always have this problem. Now, if you can put a VPN server, if you can put a firewall, if you can build a DNS, a website on the Raspberry Pi, that's all you need. That's all you need. You just need to, plug it to a switch or something and just do everything that you really want to do,
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I agree, 100%. I agree. I think I'm glad that maybe this has helped inspire you to kind of move that direction, because I think I don't know, like I said, I think it's important that they have that tactile, that they have that sense of accomplishment, that this tool gives us the ability to have them do all of those things. That, and that's not a normal thing. It's not normal. You're not going to replace your laptop to have it become a firewall, but I can do that here, right? and have it attached to my network, and it's inexpensive from a community college standpoint, community college student standpoint. I don't know. Good. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Are there any other questions? Thanks a lot. Is anybody interested in coming to Albuquerque and playing with me in my lab anytime? Like, we should do this in person in the lab, right? We just got, I think all of our new furniture is coming. So we have a robotics arena smack in the middle of the room. Like, it's like totally awesome. That'll be fun. All right. We're going to have to make that happen one of these days. We're going to have like a little, I don't know, mini hackathon or something. We'll just have something where we get together. Because we have a really cool space. And we've spent a lot of money in this room. In fact, we're not there yet, but when we get done, that room is designed for what's called Attend Anywhere. I don't know if you guys have. There you go. Attend Anywhere. We have the classroom has been set up with Attend Anywhere, which means students can sign up for for a class in that classroom, and they can come in person. They can watch it live online, or they can watch it recorded later. But it has cameras and mics in the room. It tracks the instructor. I can have it show, the screen if I wanted to show the screen, those kind of things from a classroom perspective. And then in addition to that, because it is a robotics lab, we are getting we're getting a simulcast system put in place, so we can actually simulcast the robotics arena and the activities going on in the room live on the internet from the classroom. So I'm super excited by the time we get to the end of this this process. We've been on this process for the last 18 months trying to get this room wrapped up and done, and I think we're going to have most everything done by the end of July. So I'm excited. We're going to have a party and invite everybody. So we'll do. So, all right. Fun to volunteer. Yes, it is. So, all right, let's take a break, right? Let's before we get rolling on the next two parts, because after this it's gonna be labs, and if you guys have seen, as soon as we start labs, I just kind of keep going. I don't really stop for break. So let's do like let's do a 10-minute break now. We're gonna come back and we're gonna then start working on let's do the lamp stack. I wanna again, as in a project I haven't done, it is coming from a reliable source, and we are going to re-image or create an image based on legacy OS. So we're gonna do legacy OS first, then we'll jump onto the lamp stack, and we'll get rolling on it. But let's do 10 minutes and yeah, take care of business, and then we'll come back and we'll have some fun the rest of the morning. All right. Let's do this. So we're going to use raspberrypi.com and raspberrypi.org. So for .com, depends on your equipment that you have with you. If you only have the one Raspberry with the one SD card, then yeah, we're going to destroy your ad card so, to do this next project. If you have other SD cards, right, which is usually the better way to do it, is we're going to image one of the SD cards using the legacy OS, right? And then if you have a single Raspberry Pi, then you basically are going to shut down the current Raspberry Pi that you have running with AdGuard. You're going to remove the SD card, plug in the new SD card, and then power it back up, and you'll have a new, right? So we're going to go through the whole headless connectivity process again, which now that we have a better understanding how that works, it goes pretty smooth. But that's what we're going to do. We'll create that piece and get a legacy OS first, and then we'll go over to the .org website, and we will run through their tutorial on setting up a LAMP stack, right? Web server. And then we'll do lunch, and then after lunch, we're going to come back and we're going to wipe out that web server, or if you want another SD card, right? Another SD card, and we're going to do the Python Django web page. Just kind of see, websites, one with, kind of the Apache, Linux, Apache, Mongo kind of deal. And then the other one will be Python and Django. So you'll see two different ways of doing that. All right. So yeah, so let's get started. Let me grab an SD card. These little kids are flying all over the place. Let's see. I'm going to go with the new one. Not overwrite an old one. Okay. All right. So SD card into an SD card reader. SD card reader into your PC. That'll be the first part.
What size SD card? 32 or 16?
I have been able to do everything for all of these classes with 16s, right? So, yeah, it used to be we could get away with 4, and then it became 8. 16 seems to be kind of the smallest, and since we're not going to be putting a ton of like data or anything on them, 16s work really well, and then they're also a good price point for students as well. Sometimes though, you can get 32s at about the same price, so I go with 32s when that happens, when they're on sale. And I think I have maybe one 64, but it was bought for a different purpose, not for the Raspberry. Yeah, so I have my students shy away from, or I try to get them to shy away from anything other than 16s or 32s, right? Because once you start getting to 64, right, you're starting to double. It's still not overly expensive, but you're doubling the cost of the data storage. I'd rather have 2 32s so I can do 2 different things, right? And just exchange them out versus the 164. And then if a 64 breaks, it's a little more painful, right? It's even worse when you get like a 128, you're spending $20, $30 on a really nice one. And then it breaks on accident, right? Something happens, and then that SD card is worthless at that point. So, yeah, so I would be really 1632. That's what I kind of stick at, and then I think I haven't looked lately to see if there's an updated article on performance, SD card performance in the Raspberry Pi. That, I think that's kind of a funny thing to think about, right? Because when you think about that, you're thinking, well, I know we have, I always have a couple of folks that are like, they really are really kind of hardcore PC builders, and they really, the differences between the different processors and the different, video cards and different levels of RAM and things like that, that all is important to them. And it's kind of funny that now I'm like, I have a bunch of SD cards and I just throw in whatever I have. But as I buy SD cards now, I'm looking, okay, what's the performance of this card? so that it runs better and faster. So, and that I do have my recommendations for my class is based on an article I believe Tom's Hardware did, where they actually tested like a series, like 10 different SD cards, right? And they, they came to the conclusion like this is the best performing one for the purpose, right? For the Raspberry Pi. So I'm sure that's different now, because in our field, an article that's a year old is, right? I don't know, history. it does. I'm not sure that it applies any longer, but anyways, 16s and 32s. That's a really long way to get to that answer. So 16 is fine. We don't really need to go to the Raspberry Pi webpage, because the software that we're going to run is going to be available on our Pi Imager. Right, so Pi Imager, we're just going to open that. There it goes. I moved it because I was playing with it yesterday. All right, so on the choose the OS, so this is where we're going to do something a little different, right? Choose the OS, and instead of choosing the Raspberry Pi OS 32-bit up here, that's the default recommended current version using Bullseye. We want to go to the Raspberry Pi OS Other. We're going to go to the second section. Then we're going to scroll down to where it says Legacy, right? Raspberry Pi OS Legacy, report of Debian Buster with security updates and desktop environment. This one here, okay? Interesting. It knows that I have it on my computer. So I'm like, what? So I already have this on my computer. You see online, right? If you download the image, it knows you have it and it'll use the local image. Right? So I'm going to use, right, Raspberry Pi OS Legacy. Okay. And now that we've got our operating system chosen, we can go to the gear box here for advanced options. And for this session only, like I'm going to set the, so I'm going to do this as WotC 2, because I think I have a WotC 1. I need different names, right? Because my first one was Raspberry Pi, and then I have a second one called WotC 1, and now I've got WotC 2. So WotC 2 is going to be my name. You can use whatever name you want. Just make sure it's different than something else that you're maybe running on your network. I'm going to enable SSH. I am going to stick with the username Pi, and for simplicity purposes, I am going to stick with the default. I will wipe these out once this work is done, so I'm not worried about the security issues with that. I'm not going to configure wireless LAN. I'm going to go ahead and set them my local setting, so American Denver in US, and then everything else I'm fine. Okay, so the big things were the name, and I'm trying to keep them simple so I don't forget what they are. Password authentication with SSH, and then set the username and password. So we're going to save that information, and then choose the storage. It's going to be the Sabrent that I've got connected, and I'm going to click right, and I'm going to click yes. So while we're doing that, I am going to connect to, I want to say, and I do not remember which one it was. It's one of these. No, it's not. I'm trying to look this up. Maybe, nope. So the new OS is this. This one here is So this is my, this is the one we worked on the other day. This is the one that has add guard on it. So I've got my add guard, which is 171. Let me find my notes from last night and see if I wrote down the IP address for my, all I'm trying to do is find the IP, I don't think I wrote it down. The IP address for my second computer here that I'm going to shut it down. I just wanted to shut it down nicely, but I'm just going to shut it down. It should have been. Oh, you know what? I never logged into it from here. I think it's 172, 17, 69, 135. It's not because I never logged in. I never set up SSH. Trying to think through this process as we wait for this thing to go. And then I did install terminal. Thanks for the suggestion. It works a whole lot better. SSH 135. So this is, and I called it legacy. So that's the original one that I worked on last night. Right? Is it shut down? Is it just now or is it dash now? So I can't remember. I think it's me and my Linux desktops. Is this a permissions issue? Yeah. $11:30. It'll shut down in a minute. Okay, we'll let that one go. I don't need to be here for that, so we're gonna let that shut down. And then once it's done, I will then unplug it and I'll plug in the other SD card. I'm just gonna use that second Raspberry for that one. All right, so we got this going on here. Preparing to write. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. Let it finalize. All right, so we're good there. We're going to take out this card. And at this point, I'm going to wait for I can see the flashing lights on it right now. I'm waiting for that to finish. Go close this. Almost done. You have to, oh wow, on the Mac OS, you have to add you have to type in your password on the right button. That seems crazy.
No, because you're writing to your operating system to a disk, and so it's trying to do is make sure you don't overwrite your disk.
All right, that's cool. Kind of a last second check. Are you sure you want to do this? Authenticate to make sure. All right, so I'm going to unplug my Raspberry Pi. And then I'm going to plug in this other SD card real quick. And then we're going to plug this Raspberry Pi back in. Plug it in the correct way. All right, so so one of the things I end up doing when I am working on these, in these labs and things like that, and I'm changing out SD cards, I will kind of as a real quick way to organize it, keep myself organized. While I'm doing the workshop, I'll do something like this. I'll just take the SD card, right to a note. It's legacy, it's a performance monitor. So I know what's on here, right? And then later on, when I'm cleaning up afterwards, right? And if I want to keep that, then I can, put it in one of my card slots and then add it to my inventory, what's on there. If I need to, otherwise, right, this then becomes, fodder for the next project if I'm not worried about keeping it. Okay. So just something to keep an eye, because a random set of, right, if you do something like this, right, like I have no idea what's on any of those. I pull them out and stuck them there. So that's kind of the thinking here. It's like this way I have, right, I have those available. I know what it is. If I want to throw that back in to a machine and continue on, I've got it ready to go. All right, so now I plug this computer in. Okay, so I've got some, so the flashing components look fine. It looks like it's connected to the Ethernet. So let's bring the terminal back up real quick. And I called it ping, let's see, 2.local. I'm going to put the -4 in there because otherwise it'll return a. That should, it took the same IP address. Okay, so that's the same IP address that we had. So when I SSH to this, it should give me a headache, right? It's going to be like, it shouldn't like the hashes. I think that's what's going to do. Let's see what happens. I did turn SSH on. Okay, so yeah, so this is that warning. Hey, your remote host identification has changed. Right, so the key failed. All right, so then what I have to do is add a correct host key, right? Or I can go there. So users carry, I got to go to .ssh and kill that stuff off.
We get that on the Mac too.
Yeah, so what that is it's right. I plugged it into the same computer. It got the same IP address, right? Because the IP address is going to be based on the MAC address. So let's find that information. I think it's under user, carry.
For the Mac people, it's in the .ssh, which is a hidden folder. So you have to go into your Finder and then you go to folder and then just paste in that path. And that's how you get to that file.
Right, so at that point, we just want to delete that. So we deleted the entry for that computer. I think it's because I didn't open it as an administrator. Oh, it's gone. File open. Let me get rid of this. Close this, get rid of this. No, it doesn't want to let me get rid of that. Oh, maybe I didn't save it. So, I'll close that. And we'll try that again. Yeah, okay. So then, yeah, so you have to delete the entry from the host file. And then it's yes again. And then the password is. All right. So now I'm connected to WotC2. Like this is, now that we figured out how the PyImager does that, it's so much easier to do headless. Like this is, this is light years ahead of where we had to do, a year ago, kind of all the crazy stuff we've been doing. Like we talked earlier about, editing the WPA supplicant file and adding SSH file and then all kinds of crazy stuff. So I'm connected to the device, right? So while I'm there, I'm going to do sudo raspi-config. And the only thing I really want to do, well, I think two things. So interface options, I want to turn on VNC. So I'm going to, and this is all controlled by arrows, right? So up and down. So VNC, enter, left mouse right or left arrow right, enter. So VNC server has been enabled, click OK. And then we're going to hit tab to go to select and then go, oh, no, I want to go back. I think, let's go to display options. Set a specific. Finish and reboot. All right, so it kicked me out of SSH. And then I want to bring over VNC. And we'll wait for it to reboot. Usually takes a little while.
Carrie, may I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Katie has been super helpful. So I don't know whoever wants to help, but so I'm on a Mac. I open the known hosts file. The text at the bottom is because I've been playing with different, creating different OSs, I guess, different SD cards. So it's the bottom one that says Raspberry Pi for me. The most recent one is 2.local. Like, I'm not clear exactly what to delete. Because it's not working.
Whichever IP address. Like mine had it listed as an IP address first, right? So the IP address and then the name of the host. So when I tried to, I'll go back and bring this over. Like, so when I right up here, when I tried to SSH to this IP address, it gave me this warning, right? And it wouldn't let me connect. So I'm trying to delete the record that points to this IP address. So whichever record has that IP address in it, that's the one that needs to go away.
Okay, and I've done that twice, and it says permission denied.
Permission denied to get rid of it?
No, on the in terminal for the SSH after I enter the password.
So it's then connecting you to, and then you try to type in the password that you just set, right? The one that you just set. My first thought is that, I think my first thought is typed wrong. Second thought is cap locks, not cap locks, right? So, right, because you only put it in once, so it could have been typed in wrong, or you think you typed it in on the Pi Imager one way and it was something different. That's
it's interesting. For me, it's saved, even though it was set to local session or this session only, it did save.
Oh, it saved it like when you went back in, it was there still?
Yeah, the SSH, all the different settings.
Okay.
Did you check the SSH box in the Raspberry Pi Imager when you put together the configuration?
Yes, it had remembered all the settings.
It wouldn't let her get to the password if SSH wasn't turned on.
Oh.
Right,
Okay,
it would tell you connection refused, right? That's usually what it would do. I'm just wondering, because I mean, if you typed in the password and you're getting it's an authentication issue, then either didn't take the password or thinks the password's something different.
Okay.
Or maybe because it was already there, like maybe go back and re-image, but type everything in again, like just retype it. That would be how I would look for it. Like what did I type? I mean, I'm thinking to myself, what did I type wrong? Because like if it's not authenticating you, then if it's letting you get there and get past this error, right? Then the log file has been corrected. The known host has been corrected because it would give you this error if there was a problem in the known host file. So we've got past that error. Now we have an authentication error. So there's something wrong with the username password combination. And the way to fix that is to just, at this point, re-image the disk, but retype it in so you know exactly what's there. Does that help? Not help? I'm sorry.
No, that's great. That was exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I think so it's asking for the password on my SSH, so I'm good there. So I know that my computer is back up and running. And then I'm gonna drop that off to the side here real quick, and I want to see if VNC connects properly, and it looks like VNC is gonna connect properly, so Pi and my amazingly secure Raspberry password. And right, hey, you're still using the default. What's going on, dude? That's what they're telling us. Okay, and then here's the welcome to, before you get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through the initial setup, right? So that I can set my, you know, all of my things to make it work for me. So setting the locations and that kind of stuff. I'm afraid to do, from a lab perspective, I'm going to not do the updates at the end in order to avoid, I'm not going to change the password either. I think we're fine there. I'm going to skip the Wi-Fi and I'm going to skip the updates in the software, so we're good.
Can
So
I
I don't,
ask you
yeah.
one
go
more?
ahead.
I'm sorry, I have to re-download. It said it doesn't, the config file didn't exist. So, and I'm on a slower connection. When we pick the operating system in the list of it, you want the legacy, just says legacy.
Just
not
says
the light
legacy. No, the light one is going to be without a graphical interface.
Yeah, I did the legacy, but it said the config file didn't exist. I'm going to redo it.
Okay. All right, so then now this, so I've got this computer, it's got a graphical interface. I also connected to it with SSH. I know you guys can see it, there's a low voltage warning up here, right? And the reason it's a low voltage warning is I'm actually running this Raspberry Pi off of a USB port on my computer. So I understand why that's there. I'm not overly concerned with that at this point. Right? But just want you to be aware of it. So because your students will get that. It depends on, you know, if they have a low voltage issue, then they, you know, they either need a better power supply that provides more amperage, right? In my case, I'm using the computer, so it's like I'm only going to get that much. All right, so I'm going to set those off. I just wanted to make sure I could connect remotely to these devices, and we went through again. I think going through that process over and over again, that process starts to become a little easier. We still run into issues, and as we kind of work through those issues, right, then we can solve the problems for our students as well. Okay, I'm going to close that real quick, and I want to take a look now. You know, and we're not going to. I know I have several folks still working on their Raspberry, so we're going to let them kind of just keep on trucking. We're not going to get rolling on this until we have everybody ready. So what I want to do is I'm going to click on the learn up here. And actually let's go back to the Raspberry Pi Foundation. There used to be like a browse the coding projects. Maybe that's it. All right, so that's where I want it to be. So browse the coding projects. And there's this, what do we want to make today? We want to make a website today. So the first one we're going to do is this build a LAMP web server with WordPress. And then the second one we're going to do is build a Python web server with Flask. Okay. So we're going to try it in two different ways, just to kind of see the difference. You know, I will state up front, I'm not a web person. So but I think we'll be okay. I'm a lot more confident than I was yesterday afternoon. Right on this project, right, LAMP. I keep saying LAMP. If you're not familiar with LAMP, right, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, right? LAMP stack is kind of the common term for that. So we're going to configure it as a web server. So we're going to make our Raspberry Pi into a web server, right? So this is the project. I confirm. Oh, I'm sorry. She got a text. My wife just texted me right in the middle of me talking. And my complete train of thought disappeared. Right. So, anyways, we're going to build a web server. And I think it's an interesting project because then students could, they can build their own web servers and do whatever they want to with them. So it's going to be pretty cool. What do we need for this? This should be a project where we need a Raspberry Pi connected to the internet, right? And then an update install. We got it, we just put legacy on, right? So we should be okay. We didn't do the updates, right? And I think the reason I didn't want to do the updates, right, is that I really don't want, and if you're doing this in class or in a workshop, for sure, if you haven't done the prep work and have the machines already ready to go, right? Then I caution you for having anybody do any kind of updates unless it's required, like an update, do the sudo apt-get update so you get the list so that you can install a library. That kind of thing makes sense, but to do a sudo upgrade, right? That would not make sense because it could be a 5-minute deal, it could be a 45-minute deal. And it will basically put a damper on any kind of project that you're working on. Okay. And I just kind of want to look through. I'm going to look through this to see what we're up against. It looks like I would imagine it's going to be mostly, command prompt kind of stuff, right? And then this is a browser, right? So we're getting this a browser on the local host. So maybe we may want to be able to, this is local. So we want to be able to get to the local, which is why we would use VNC for this. But otherwise, the installation looks like it can all be done through SSH. MySQL is there. I'm downloading WordPress. Setting up the WordPress database. And then WordPress configuration will be then using a browser. So, and they hate localhost, but I would imagine that you could just from this machine go to the IP address, right, of that machine and probably get to it. So I'm curious. I think when we get to the point where they want us to go to the browser, then I'm going to try to get to it from my browser on my PC so that I wouldn't have to use VNC for this project. So those are the kind of things that, as you're kind of preparing to do these, if you're going to do something like this in a class, is what tools do I need my students to have? Do I need to have VNC? Do I really need to go do this and have them turn that on? And, maybe not, probably not. But as we go through, if for some reason it doesn't function the way we expect it to, then we can easily jump over to VNC as we're working. So in our case today, I have everything available to me just in case.
Another question, Carrie.
Uh-huh.
So in VNC Viewer, the text size is huge, and I'm not able to resize it, if that makes sense. Do you have recommendation?
So if you go to the Raspberry menu, Preferences, Raspberry Pi configuration, under, where is it at? That's the resolution. There should be, where did we find it yesterday? Now that I say that, there was the ability to set the, okay. We're in, so on the display, set the resolution to a normal resolution, because I think it defaults to a 480 resolution, right? So set it to another resolution that's doable for you. All right.
Thank you.
On the newer OS, so this is interesting to me now, because, right, thanks for bringing this up. 171. So this is, let's go look at this, so here's a difference between the operating systems. Oops. Other than we already know kind of library problems and things like that. So there's, and then Pi camera stuff is missing, but if we go to preferences, under display, now look, there's a headless resolution. Okay, which is the resolution that would be accessed through VNC, right? If you're doing headless. So on the legacy OS, it's simply a resolution that you set for the display, regardless of whether it's remote or not remote. On the newer version, you can set for headless, and then out here on desktop preferences, you can set the resolution for the actual desktop. Okay. So something to think about. It is kind of a weird, I mean, it's a little bit different on this computer versus the other one. So I would go with the display, set resolution, and then set a resolution to, you know, a more common resolution, and your little icons for your words and stuff will get smaller. I think there's also, if we go to right mouse click on the desktop preferences. You can set the font, right? So you can maybe set that a lot smaller, but I think if you have like a 480 resolution, your words are going to be huge anyway. So it's probably better to set the resolution and see how that works. And then you could adjust the font and the size of the font, the colors, all that kind of stuff, like you would on a normal, any other kind of, you know, regular desktop. So that's another option too. Okie dokie, I'm gonna set that off to the side. And how we doing? We about ready to get rolling? I think we probably have a reboot or two going right through right now.
Yeah, my internet went down and I have to go down the stairs and reboot my modem, and you know,
Oh, no.
and then
One of those days.
yeah, and I keep looking at the Raspberry Pi. I still have the card on my PC, so it's kind of
Right.
take a minute here. So
No
it's
worries.
almost there. Yeah.
No worries. We can just want to kind of get everybody to that same spot.
I'm having a hard time locating the project on the website.
Oh, Sarah just put it in the chat. I was about to do the same thing. So There's
Yeah,
two-
but I'm
two of
using
them.
I'm using a different computer. I've got like 2 or 3 computers.
oh, okay. So okay, well then I'll get there. So I'm gonna go back. Here's the main website.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, and then I scroll down to where it says browse 200 plus 50 coding projects.
Oh, wait. That
So-
was the thing. Hang on, let me click here. Okay.
so if you
Oh,
click-
there. That's the click I meant. No,
So-
okay, I was there.
So you browse
And then
this,
what?
and then you click on website right here up on top,
Okay, and I was there. I was so close.
right? And then there's 3 bird watch ones, and then the lamp one.
I don't build a lamp. For some reason, oh, there it is. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Awesome. Right, so we already know we need a Raspberry connect to the internet, and just right, so there's no other parts and pieces that we need. So that's pretty good. So I think the first step here, and I'm just kind of looking through it, right? We're gonna do right a sudo apt-get install Apache 2, it looks like. And then we're gonna test the web server right off the bat. Right? So we'll just see if it's there. And this is kind of where I'm talking about. You'll be able to hit the website from another computer, right? And that's the idea. So yeah, so I don't think we're gonna need to have VNC running. So I'm gonna close VNC so I don't have that running as something that's taking up bandwidth on my particular computer at this point. Turn off my camera so I don't have it running. I'm just gonna clean up some stuff real fast while we're waiting. But otherwise, right? if you're already to this point and you want to get started, and some of you probably are already way down here, it's fine, not a problem. Just want to make sure that as we go through this, we can catch as many of us as possible. So I usually, even in class, I'll usually give them this time, right, to get get through the little kind of weirdness that kind of happens, so that everybody's the starting point. Everybody's we get everybody coming along with us. We don't leave anybody behind. I also let my students know, hey, you're welcome to go forward, right? But if you run into a problem, like if you're running into a problem with WordPress, then hold that question until we get to that point, right? Because it's not really fair to the rest of the class if we're installing Apache and you're asking questions, for 4 steps later. So that's the only real caveat that I kind of, I have for my students. Like if you're working ahead and you run into a problem, then you need to wait until we get to that point before you ask the question. Because otherwise we're bouncing back and forth. All right, so I'm gonna cruise. We're gonna go ahead. So I've already logged in, like, so a minute.
I had a question for you on. I've got that goofy can't show the desktop in the VNC. So I can't remember where we need to change. We need to change the resolution for headless.
Well, you can't change it for headless. You can just change the resolution.
It
And
has
because if you're running the legacy OS, the headless resolution doesn't exist. It's just a resolution. And you can change that resolution. You go to the menu, go to preferences.
Yep, I'm there. It's got default and DMT, but was it DMT? DMT 82?
I set mine like DMT 35.
35, perfect. I'll try that.
35 is like, I don't know, 12 something by 1024, something like that.
No.
It might force a reboot.
Yeah, it did.
Resolution change. Okay.
You can go on. I'll try that. Thanks.
All right. So for this project, you don't need VNC. So you should SSH in so that we can avoid any kind of resolution problems at this point. So that was part of why I was trying to check through this and see if we needed to have that. We don't need VNC. Right, so SSH is where we're going to be, and then we're going to use the browser on my computer to connect to the web page on the Raspberry. Right? That's kind of the point of the project, right? So I don't really need to be on the local machine in a graphical form. So I'm hoping to avoid that. So, and I think for these projects, especially when we have all these installations and configurations and stuff, as long as we can do it with SSH, students get more comfortable in this environment, which is the more management side of the equation. All right, so sudo apt-get. This is the first command here that we need to run. Apache 2-y. Right? So sudo allows us to run this as super user. Apt is the repository that we're getting to install. Apache 2 is the program we're installing, and the -y will answer why, like yes, to any question that's asked during the installation. So it doesn't pause and wait for us to answer.
And you didn't want us to update the Raspberry Pi at all, right? No. Okay.
No, and the reason I don't is because it could take one student 5 minutes and it could take one student 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then not only are we waiting for installations to finish, which that 10 minutes is kind of about the limit. Otherwise you have, everybody kind of gets sidetracked. And, and if we add on the updates from that point forward. So if you have to do like we did today, like I wanted to do the installation as part of the lab, then absolutely don't do updates. If you're doing the installation as an installation, right? And you start class, and today we're going to install. When you're done with the installation, then yes, absolutely do the updates, right? The only caution I have with doing updates like that is if you don't have like 45 minutes left in class when they start the updates, then probably don't do them in class at that point. Does that make sense? And the reason why is because, like, I know I've had students that, they started updates like with 20 minutes left, and in order for their machine ran for 40 minutes. So then they either had a choice of like killing it during the updates, or like we could, leave it on the workbench and hope nobody else messed with it, or they could hang out and, for the next 40 minutes while it finished. And if I was leaving, then they couldn't stay. So then, what we do is I have students do the installation in the class with me, so that I can handle all of the problems, right? And we can walk everybody through all the problems that we have that crop up. They inevitably do. And if this is the first time and it is the first time for installation for most of these folks on this kind of a system, I want to be able to walk them through it, explain what's going on, so that when the next time they see it, they've got, and we walk it through where everybody in the class can hear what's going on, so that they all learn from that process. But if we get to the end and we don't have enough time to process updates, then right, my students, they're supposed to own their own device, right? So I tell them, go home, run this command, right? And the command's at the end of the assignment anyway. Run these 2 commands, tonight, tomorrow, Wednesday, whenever, but have it done before you come back, and know that it may take an hour, but you only need to spend 5 minutes, right? You need to get it booted, run the command, let it, get it to the point where it's doing the installations, and then walk away. You don't need to watch it. That's one thing I've had technicians that they were doing updates on machines, and they would click update and they would sit there and watch the machine. I'm like, what are you doing? Go to the next machine and start working on it. That doesn't need your help. Like, it's going to go without your help. Well, what happens when I have to do more updates? Well, then it's fine. Come back here in 10 minutes and check it. Right. So I do that same process with my server students as well. Like, if you're running updates, let it run, go do something else, like be productive while the computer does its work. Don't, very rarely do I ever sit around and watch a computer do something like that. Like the YouTube stuff, like I get it set up and run, and then I go do other things. Because I don't want to sit around for 20 minutes while I upload a video. It just doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so it looks like my stuff is done. Again, I'm sharing with you kind of my thinking of this. I came from industry. I ran, computer support units. I ran my own computer support company. So I have some specific things that I want my students to learn, and not screen watching is one of them. So I don't have it down as a learning objective, but man, that's one thing I need them to learn quickly. Move on, do other things. All right. We can make more money that way. So it's easier to bill lots of people for the same time. Okay, so it says it's there. Default Apache puts up a text file. So if it says it's like 172, 17, 69, 135, and look at there. I have a web page. All right, project's finished. I'm going to lunch. I'm kidding. We have Apache running, so on the web server, and I've connected to it from my PC. So yay, I'm now a web person. You need to tell your students, right, not to do localhost, right? Especially if you're doing like we're doing, like I have, right? And this is a concept that you need to understand. Like when it says localhost, that's assuming you're sitting at the machine and you have a browser and all that kind of stuff. And we're not. We're on another machine. So we need to be able to connect to the IP address of that machine. And how do we know what the IP address is? Well, over here, right, we went through this process at the very beginning to find it, right? And it gave us the IP address. So we know the IP address. We're connected to it with SSH from the same address. So over here, we would type in that same address right here to get to the web page. Okay. kind of basic networking, right? But a lot of students that are working, early on in their training, that's not a concept that's ingrained yet, right? So kind of walking them through that. All right, so good. We got a website, and it looks like, right? It looks like the default website right there. Yay. I love it. Right, so then they do tell you down here, hey, you may have to actually, right? And then I'd have students type this in, right? Well, I can't get to my webpage. Was that actually your IP address for your route for your Raspberry Pi? Right. So that same kind of conversation. I think they also say over here, right? If we don't know the IP address, which we should because we're SSHing into it, but right there, host name dash capital I, and it'll return the IP address for me. Okay, so we're good. So then change the default web page, right? So the default web page is located here, and they want us to navigate to that directory. So they give us how to do that. So back onto the Raspberry Pi, right-hand side of the screen, cd /www/html. All right, ls-al. It's going to give us the list of the files. Index.html file is the file that we're looking at. Okay. And they do I think this is nice. It refers to the directory itself. .. refers to the parent directory, right? And they explain what those are. The permissions on the file. So they're starting to kind of explain a little bit of that. The person, the file, the directory file, directory one is the file. One is a file. These are directory numbers. Right? So you could use that, use this as, again, an opportunity to kind of show them what does this mean from a Linux world. Okay. What do they want us to do? We can edit this using mousepad. So nice. Let's do something new. Sudo mousepad. Has anybody ever used mousepad? It sounds like it's going to be, I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep my comments to myself. Sudo mousepad. So I guess you could do sudo nano if you like something else. Use sudo nano, or whatever, right? Use nano. Is mousepad not installed? Mousepad is not installed. Awesome. So then, yeah, nano. Maybe if we had updated, but I don't think mousepad is a normal thing, right? Test editing Genie is good for programming. Okay, so mousepad works good, right? I think I've used it once as kind of part of one of these things, but like obviously if it's not there, then now we can go, well, how do we install that? So here's the code. If you make a change to this file and save it and refresh the browser, you see the change appear, right? So here's the one that says right there, and I got somewhere up here is going to say it works, right? It works right here. There you go. I'm not good at any of this stuff, I promise you. All right, so if you make a change to this, so we're going to make a change, and our change is going to be really simple. It works. Yay. All right, so Control O, enter, Control X. Right? So, and then if I refresh here, maybe that was supposed to change it. Why did it not change? Shouldn't I have gotten?
It says it works at the top in red.
Right, but I put yay after it. Oh, I've got the exclamation point there. Okay, maybe you guys can help me out then. Like, so I put that. Did I miss something up?
That's a title in the toolbar or in the tabs. What you need to do is change it in the HTML body. Go to the body, go down, all the way down. You gotta go like the next screen. You're in the style sheet. Keep going down.
Okay. See, this is where it's like having somebody who knows what they're talking about.
This I know. So slow down. Right there, it's
I see the default web page.
Yep.
It works. There it is. I see it. All right. So then at that point, if I say yay there, I should get a yay on my red line there.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Yay. That's all I wanted to see. There we go. Nice. Okay, awesome. It works. We did good. Sudo apt install mouse pad. Mousepad is already the newest version. It said it didn't have it. I think it's something different there, actually. I'm just curious, right? Like, so using the
Okay,
fallback
so
seed account. So it's like in this-
Mousepad is actually a graphical application. and
Ah,
you're
there you
not in a
go.
graphical environment.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if you had a local X server, you could do
Mhm.
it. That's actually what I'm doing. I'm working
Okay.
remotely over the command
Yeah.
line. I'm doing X11 forwarding. So that's why you get all these GTK errors.
Okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
graphical stuff.
So then, yeah, so mousepad is there, but it's like it doesn't run in the terminal, right? So that makes sense to me now. If I was running VNC, then mousepad would have worked, right? So I'm going to move on to the next page, which is install PHP, right? We've got Apache installed. We use Nano to do the editing. I changed this one line here, right, to see that something changed. Install PHP, right? So PHP is a preprocessor. It's code that runs when the server receives a request for a web page via a web browser. Okay, so the first command that we need to do here, so this is the P part of the LAMP acronym. Right, so sudo apt get install php -y. Okay. So we've got L, we have the Linux, we have an A for Apache, and now we're doing the P for PHP, and then the last piece will be the MySQL for the database. Install. So test PHP, create a file called index.php. So I think we'll just do that with sudo nano, right? Instead, and then we're gonna put this content in there, save the file, delete the index file because it takes precedence over the PHP file. So then the PHP file, which is this right here, will be the only thing left. So when we get back to that, right, my understanding of this would be it would say hello world, and that would be all it says. All right. So we are kind of stuck watching the screen after I just railed against watching the screen. And then, so if you see raw PHP above, instead of hello world, reload the Apache. So we don't see this hello world, we reload Apache. We can use some dynamic context. And, okay, we can try a bunch of different things. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we got to the end right down there. Awesome. So we're still in that same, so we do the ls.al, right? So we have the index.html. It wants us to create sudo index.php. Oh, sudo nano. All right, and then, so we're here, kind of test PHP, create a file, which I created. And then in this file, it wants us to do caret question mark PHP echo. Oops. World. Oops. So mine turned yellow. Is there Did I do something wrong?
It's just doing syntax highlighting.
Because this one says shows green. None of these things are the same color. Never mind.
And it's-
PHP echo hello world.
Yeah, there'll be different colors depending on which editor.
Okay. Control O, enter, Control X. And then, oh, we have to do a couple other things before I get to that point, right? So then at that point, I want to rm index.html. Sudo. All right, so then if we do the ls.jl, all I have now left is the index PHP. If I refresh, we get hello world. So now I have a web page running on Apache using PHP. Still not a web person. So, but I'll get there one of these years. All right, so remove index. I didn't have an issue, mine worked. So if it says if you get weirdness here, then you should restart Apache, right? So sudo service Apache 2 restart. And then you can also go back into the index, right? And add some other things, right? So I think, and I don't, PHP, just hope these things work, but let's see. Looks like we're gonna add whatever the current date and time is, it looks like. So PHP, echo date, open paren, single quotes, capital Y dash, dash lowercase m, lowercase d, space capital H, colon, little I, little colon, little s, single quote, parenthesis, semicolon, question mark. There you go. And then also, I guess there's some PHP information. I'm thinking I can do all these at the same time. I'm hoping I can do all these at the same time. It should just stack everything. I'm hoping. I don't know. We'll see. I think if I'm with students, I'm not going to tell them I don't know what I'm doing. Refresh. So hello world, and then there's my date and time, and then here's the information about my PHP. There's my web page. How do you separate these two onto different lines?
You put a line break, a BR tag. So where it says hello world,
Right?
then right after the exclamation point inside the quotes, go inside the quote and then put an opening bracket. It's like a
that guy
of the comma, yeah, and then BR and then a closing bracket.
Capital or lowercase?
Lowercase.
Lowercase and a closing bracket.
And then a closing. There you go.
Awesome. Beautiful. All right. So we have an LAP. We have a lap server. Like probably not something we should say in class. All right. Install MySQL. So install MariaDB. So the next step, I'm on to the next step. We got LAP. Now we're doing the M component. So sudo apt-get install MariaDB -server space PHP -MySQL space -1. So we're going to install MariaDB server and PHP MySQL.
I'm starting on mine right now, so it shouldn't be any tricks, right? It's straightforward if we just follow the script there, right?
Yes, sir. So far, so good.
Yeah, I'm working ahead. So far, everything looks good. So keep
Okay,
just follow.
sound good. Thank you.
Yeah, I've found that for the most part, the projects that are on the Raspberry Pi websites tend to be pretty on. They don't have a lot of problems.
I think it'd be interesting to do this with the updated OS.
It probably would work fine. I just wasn't sure, and I wanted to be comfortable.
Sure.
So yeah, try it on the new one, and see. I don't know that it will be a problem. Based on what we ran into yesterday, I wanted to make sure that we were not spending our time troubleshooting as much as possible. So and I still, because I still use the Pi camera stuff, like I said earlier, I still would use Legacy OS in my classroom. Probably this fall will probably be the last time we use it. But I would want to test and check everything on the newer stuff and then modify it, modify the code definitely if we need to modify the code. And then, yeah. I keep thinking about our ideas yesterday. I'm like, man, that'd be really fun to put together a really comprehensive version of this. Ooh, Rick, have fun giving a final. Couldn't get an IP address. That's weird. Okay.
Okay, as an extra credit assignment, what does it take to
Here we go.
What does it take to enable HTTPS?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Well, okay, we can figure that out later on.
Yeah, we'll try.
Okay.
All right. So at this point, we've got I installed my MariaDB and PHP, and we're going to restart Apache so that that stuff becomes part of and then we have a LAMP stack at that point. If somebody knows the answer to the question, please share.
The question about HTTPS.
Yes.
We might be able to find a succinct tutorial on it. I know that for production purposes, you're probably going to spend a little bit of money.
Yeah, because you need a certificate.
You have to have a certificate authority.
Yeah.
We could probably find some tutorials that will allow us to create our own certificates. So the connection itself would be secure, but it wouldn't work for most web browsers as far as you'll still get certificate errors because you're not a trusted authority yourself.
Pass to the trusted authority. So that gets me thinking because I know in my server class we set up a certificate authority. We set up a certificate authority. We don't tie it to a third party, but on a domain, right? On the domain, you can have domain computers trust the certificate authority internally. So if you have like this as an internal website and you wanted to do that on that environment, you could do that. Like you could issue a certificate and domain computers would trust it and you wouldn't have the browser problems.
Yeah, and we can do that. We can import certificates and kind of be our own certificate authority on a LAN.
Mm-hmm.
But if your idea is you want to have a website that's that you use your own certificates for, then you'll have to go with somebody like I use Namecheap and there's others. But they'll they're trusted certificate authorities and you can buy certificates from them.
Right.
And cost varies wildly on that.
Yeah, so that's where I was trying to figure out a way. I mean, you could do it. I mean, I think especially not as part of this particular, I mean, this would be like, let's get it set up, let's get it functioning, right? Then you could you could use this platform to have, to teach students how to do PHP programming and build their own web page, right? And they'd have the web page, and then one of the assignments later on could be, maybe you set up another machine that's a certificate server, and then you can issue certificates and set up, HTTPS and those kind of things as part of the process. I mean, it would be all internal. It wouldn't be so you'd have to download certificates and do that kind of thing to avoid, issues. But I think that could easily be done within a web development class. Like their entire web server can be on their Raspberry Pi, and they can take it home and work on it and bring it here and work on it and bring it there and work. Right, if they wanted to have it that way. I don't know, something to think about. Okay, we restarted the service, and I just kind of redo this, and I got a new time update, so it looks like I'm back up and running on my deal. So we've installed MariaDB, we restarted the service, and now we're going to try to get WordPress. Right? So you can download WordPress from WordPress.org with the wget command. Hopefully, a copy of the latest WordPress is always available at this location, so you can grab the latest version. So I'm thinking they're gonna have us go here, remove everything. We're gonna download, we're gonna get the tar, we're gonna unzip the tar, and then we're gonna move. So this right here is the process to download. We're gonna get rid of that. We're gonna get rid of this web page, right? We're gonna download WordPress, and WordPress will become the web page as well. Okay, so. And it's going to walk you through what that looks like. Right? Pretty nice. And we're going to actually change ownership of the files and things like that as well. So good. So here we go. We'll see what happens. So I think PWD, I'm already there, right? We're already in var www HTML. So if you haven't moved anywhere, right, then or use PWD and make sure you're in the right place. So you need to be in /var/www/html. Sudo rm *. We're going to get rid of everything that's in the folder. So now our PHP web page is no longer there. So we're no longer webmasters. We just have a web page or a web server that doesn't work. Right? So sudo wget. I was feeling good. I have a web page. /wordpress.org/latest.tar.gz. Right, so we're going to download the zipped version of this, or the tar version of this, whatever the right nomenclature is, the GZ version. Right? Make sure I got it right. HTTP WordPress /WordPress.
Yeah.
Latest. Okay. Get enter. Awesome. Downloading. And then we're going to unzip it, right? So sudo tar xzf latest tar. All right, and move the contents of the extracted WordPress directory to the current directory. Okay, so if we do ls, right, you can see that there's now a WordPress directory, right? And we're going to take everything that's in there and put it in the current directory. That's what this next command is going to do. So sudo empty for move WordPress. Oops. /*. Space dot. That's a hard to see one there. Little dot right there. So it's saying move everything there to this location, right? And the dots, they explain that way at the beginning of the tutorial, right? It refers to the current directory. So now when we ls, we have a whole bunch of stuff in our current directory. All right. And being the good system admins that we are, we're not going to keep a copy of the tar that we just downloaded. So sudo rm WordPress. Oh, sudo rm-rf. I'm like, what? I missed something. WordPress latest .tar.gz. Okay, sorry about that. Did I get that right? Sudo. Right. Okay, so that's gone. So then run the ls or tree -l, and you'll show you the contents of the WordPress directory. So tree, let's do tree. Tree -l1. Is that a 1? There we go. Okay. So this is just right. Me, I'm the kind of guy like I'm gonna double check things. Like so that looks about right. So instead of just trusting, right? So a lot of students will just trust, oh, it's gonna work. Something like this is just a reminder. Hey, double check things, right? You know, is that what are those the right things? Are they supposed to be there? Right? Does that looks pretty straightforward. 3 directories, 16 files. Right, the last file looks good. First file looks about the right thing. There's a license text like you know, it's just a, you know, being a sysadmin for, you know, as long as I have been, I double check and triple check things before we do stuff. And I know it's maybe annoying when I'm reading out my command the second time or third time, just me being who I am. So sudo, and I try to, I talk all these things out so my students kind of know what's going on in my head as I do this, right? So right now we're changing the directory or changing the ownership of this directory, right? So that we can actually, we're taking ownership, right, of this so that we can actually do whatever we need to do with these files. And then there is another space dot on there, right? So you're going to get a lot of that, you know, make sure you don't forget to get the extra dot there. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so we've downloaded WordPress, right? And we have unzipped it and we've put everything in the right place and we've taken ownership of the files. So the next step would be to set up the WordPress database. So this is where we're going to connect WordPress to the MySQL that we installed a couple of pages ago. Okay. So run the MySQL secure installation command in the terminal, right? So sudo MySQL _secure _installation. Enter the password for root. So press enter for none, right? So set the root password, type Y and enter set root password. Let's do that. So Y, new password. What? They're not giving us one to type in? All right. Remove anonymous user. Yes, remove anonymous users. And they want disallow root login remotely. Yes. And yes on the remove test database and access to it. And yes to reload privileges table now. Yes. Thanks. All done. Right. Thanks for using it. Run MySQL in the terminal window. So we're in the terminal. So basically, we did the installation, the secure installation of MySQL. Now we're going to run MySQL. So database. We're in. So you see the prompt is now a Mariah database prompt. So enter the password you change. Greet it with the welcome to the right Mariah DB monitor. Create a database for your WordPress installation at this prompt, right? Using the command create database, WordPress. Semicolon. You have an error in your SQL syntax. Oh, I should type the word create instead of create. Okay. So we're good there. Created the database. Query OK when all affected. Then, so now grant database privileges to the root user. You need to enter your own password after identified by. And when they say own password, I'm thinking of.
Yeah, don't just copy paste or it'll say your password. Keep going where it says your password.
Yeah, right here. Like when they say that password, they talking about the password you set for the database.
No, you're creating a new one. This is just for that database. So
Oh, okay.
you type whatever unique you want. If you copy and paste it, then your password to the database is your password.
Nice.
Literally.
Yeah, no, I got you. I got you on that part. Like but we're setting one, so we don't have to. Did I misspell that? I misspelled that really badly. Wow. Grant all privileges on WordPress. To root at localhost. I got identified by quote password. Semicolon. All right. You need to flush the database privileges. So then flush privileges. So flush privileges. Exit the database, restart the Raspberry. Okay then. Control D exits, sudo reboot. We'll give that a second. So then once that comes back up, right, we should be able to refresh this page and we should get the WordPress page. And we have a WordPress web server before lunch. That's awesome. Not yet. Oh, I do have it. Yay. Right. I like it when things work. I think Sarah, like these are really good instructions, right? They're just kind of walking us through good. Okay, WordPress configuration, open the browser. I went to the browser, I just went to the web page or the IP address, and you can see I've got my WordPress website here. Select your language, hit continue. Love it. All right, welcome to WordPress. So we need to follow the database name. Okay, awesome. Are we presented with this welcome screen? Click the Let's Go button. I'm going to bring this over to here so that I'm not flipping back and forth. So now I've got my WordPress. So I'm going to click Let's Go. Fill out the basic information, WordPress, and then it's going to be root. And it's going to be the password that we set. Database host local, just leave those things there. And we hit submit. And then run the installation. Site title. So now you're getting close. Fill out the information, give your site a title, create a username and password, enter your email address, hit install. Okay. Site title. Let's see. Test site. Usernames. We have character spaces, scores, hyphens, periods, and accent. All right, so we'll go with that, install WordPress. Boom. We have a WordPress website. Change the permalink settings and URL more friendly to this. Log into WordPress, go to the dashboard, go to settings, then permalinks. Select the post name option, click. Now we have to learn how WordPress works. I see settings. Permalinks. Select the post name option, this one. Click Save Changes. You need to enable Apache's rewrite mod. All right, so we'll move this off to the other side real fast because we need to come back over here. So you need to change the permalink to be URL more friendly. Log into WordPress, go to dashboard, do that. So I've done that, then enable rewrite mod. So then we're going to sudo a2 e in mod rewrite. Oh, I'm on PowerShell. What did I do? Where's my? Oh, I know why. Because I didn't get back into my. I didn't log back in after we rebooted. Type it in the right place, Carrie. Okay, activating configuration, we need to restart. So, oh, we need to restart Apache. So that's not a problem. Do we want to? Oh, we want to do some other things before we restart Apache. It looks like, right? So it's before I do restart, we're going to do this here. Edit the Apache configuration file for your virtual host. So this is the file that it wants us to do, and add the following lines after line 1. Okay, so, right, so sudo nano, because we're not running in a /etc/Apache 2 /sites available /000-default .conf. Type something wrong. Cited. Sites available. See, I didn't read and I did it wrong. Okay. There it is. All right. So then it wants to say after line 1. So I'm assuming virtual hosts 80 is line 1. So then it wants us to do caret and directory. For those of you who are web experts, if I'm doing this in the wrong place, let me know. I think I'm where I'm supposed to be. That looks like it wanted to be tabbed in, and that should be tabbed in. So directory, caret directory, quote var www.html, quote caret, allow override all, capital A, capital O, caret /directory, caret. All right. Control O, enter, Control X. And then he wants us to do sudo service Apache 2 restart. Okay, so that's done. WordPress is very customizable. So restart Apache. So we just friendly permalinks pretty much is what we just did. And I think you can see that now. You can see that the wording up here is easier to deal with. Admin index. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. I'm not getting any errors. Things are working. That's awesome. What's next? What's next? Save your progress. Nope, we're not doing that. Try adding pages and post to your website. Try installing different themes and appearances. Try customizing your website. Okay, so now, right, we get well beyond where I am capable. So this actually now is you can teach students WordPress on their own Raspberry Pi, which I think is totally fun. Yes, no, maybe so, kind of, sort of. That was, I don't know, I found that project fun. Kind of cool that you build a web page on your, so Raspberry Pi, it's a little web server now. Yay. All right, excellent. And we have 8 minutes to spare. And it was a successful morning. Trying to see what else we got here. Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. We'll see how the next one goes. I saw who's in Python to do similar, right? The website similar. So that'll be fun too. I'm saving my crazy long password. That was there. All right, and I'm going to. Should probably, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a section to the bottom of the to labs completed in this workshop. So, all right. So this lab, I like this one. I think that was a really good one. I don't know, I think it's just the idea, I mean, that the students, you know, if you were to have this in a class, like from start to finish, right? The students went from no, you know, maybe have never done this, so they have a web server by the time they're done with it. Cool. All right, this is the, so I'm gonna put this one over here. I'm adding the links to the labs that we've done. So I know that there's, so we have the initial state, a couple labs that we did over there. Not 100% successful, but we did them. I don't mind failing, it just bugs me for a while, you know? That one's there, and then we did start doing this create outcome. All right, so the three, those three are there. And I thought it's somebody at some point in time, yeah, there we go. I believe. Yeah. So there's a link, and I'm going to move it down to this, but there's a link a little bit higher in the document about the imager and, you know, the new imager and how to do that headless setup. So I'm going to put that down here too, because that's essentially what we've done. We've done the installation, we've done the data, we did the two dashboards, and then we've done the WordPress. Oh, we did, almost forgot. We did On My Life Up, AdGuard. So the AdGuard's still working in the background. I got my computer's still directing through this, and it doesn't seem to be causing me problems, and I don't see ads, which is pretty nice. All right, so Control V. So now the very last page of our now 5-page document has the labs that we've been working on, or the labs that we've done so far, right? And then the next lab that we're gonna do, so after lunch, is this build a Python web server with Flask. So we're gonna check this one out. I'm gonna put that in the list as well. And you are all welcome to drop off and go do the whole raffle run walk thing. And I will see you back here in a little bit over an hour. Sound like a plan?
Carrie, you got a quick sec?
Yeah.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, is there any reason why, you know, on the legacy OS, I wouldn't, I mean, maybe it's not booting up with the OS, but I'm not getting an IP, but I put the other OS back on, the regular one, and it's fine.
So when you put the OS, the legacy in there, when you look at there's two lights near the power, right? There's a red light and a red light, which is a power on off thing. And then there's a green indicator light. That's going to be your kind of your hard drive indicator.
Okay.
If I've seen that happen on my machines here this week, where that turns solid green and stays solid green. And that seems to be an indicator that that's not booting. Like, so maybe the image didn't write properly or something along those lines.
Yeah, I wrote the image probably 5-6 times.
Oh, wow.
Verified fine each time, no problem.
So, and it's just not, I wonder why.
Yeah, I'll take a look at the light. So if it's solid green, it's a problem, huh?
Yeah, so this week it's been like, if it's solid green, it's not,
Yeah.
Something didn't go quite right. And when you wrote it, you're just not getting an IP address. So like you're trying to ping it by the name.
I'm actually, when I do a ping sweep with Nmap, it's nothing showing.
All right.
But if I put on the other OS, I have no problem.
Okay, so then I'm wondering, it's on the same computer, right?
Same, yeah.
All right, so I know on the one that I've switched OSs on that it kept the IP address, the same IP address. So I'm wondering if you like just try to ping the same IP address.
I did.
And it didn't. Okay, I'm trying to think through things.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I just thought if you knew something off the top of your head that you've seen.
No, and I haven't.
I had a similar problem. I couldn't get the headless to work. So I have to plug it to a monitor. And I noticed that even though I fill the information, for the username and password and enabling all of that, none of that works. So I have to go through the installation manually, and I have to enable my Wi-Fi, add it, and then it works. That's why it took me a while to be able to go, to do that.
I tried both Wi-Fi and hardwired. I tried turning during the installation. I, turn in the settings. I didn't. I disabled the configure wireless LAN to see if that was an issue.
That is the weirdest thing. Why is it not? It doesn't make any sense.
But then, I put the other one on.
It doesn't make any sense.
And it's just not a problem. Yeah, just very strange.
And so do you have it connected? Are you running it headless, or do you have it connected to a monitor?
I'm just trying to SSH into it.
Just headless. Okay.
Yeah, headless.
All right.
So
I'm wondering if plugging it into a monitor, if you have a monitor available, just to kind of see, does it actually boot, or are we getting an error? Like,
yeah, that's I'm kind of curious. I'll take a look at that when I got to go to school and
no worries,
and give my students a final, which I'm sure they're looking forward to.
I know they're ready for it, right?
And then they're done and I'm done, except for the
grade. I love it.
Anyway, I appreciate it. I appreciate recording these videos so I can.
Yeah, no worries.
Get caught up and stuff. So.
All
right. You have a great one.
All right. See you a little bit later.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Okay, then I'm going to pause the recording.